Hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. The Toronto Film Festival starts up this week, and my guest is actor, playwright, director, and screenwriter Daniel MacIvor, who has a freaking Governor General's Award for drama. His stage works include the solo shows House, Here Lies Henry, Monster, and Cul-de-sac. He also wrote Marion Bridge, and then rewrote it as a screenplay for a feature film. He did that for House, too, now that I think about it. He wrote and directed the feature films Past Perfect and Will Be Wonderful, and in 2010, he wrote Bruce McDonald's Trigger for Molly Parker and Tracy Wright, and he'll be at TIFF this Friday, September 9th, alongside Parker and McDonald for the world premiere of their new film, Weirdos. Set in 1976 on the eve of America's bicentennial, it's a black and white character piece following two teenagers hitchhiking from one small Nova Scotia town to another, and it's more than a little personal. Daniel chose Sunday Bloody Sunday, John Schlesinger's complex, challenging 1971 study of the emotional and sexual dynamics between a doctor, played by Peter Finch, a bohemian, played by Glenda Jackson, and the lover they share, played by Murray Head. Revolutionary at the time for its matter-of-fact treatment of its character's sexuality, it's now almost more intriguing for what it says about English cinema then and now, and for its tremendously felt performances, which haven't aged a day. This is Someone Else's Movie.
It's the only movie that I've seen multiple times. I've seen it probably a dozen times. And
Only one?
Yeah, the only movie. I've seen, I think I've seen Big Fish 3 or 4 times. I probably saw Dog Day Afternoon 3 times.
Right.
But this is the only double digit. And it started off, because I thought, why? I was thinking about that question. And first of all, Glenda Jackson, I think, was what drew me to it, and because she's such, she's an actor, that kind of actor, that kind of perfect sort of actor for me. And then it was one of those things where I would be somewhere and it would be screening. I was in Montreal, and there was this is like decades ago, and there was this tiny little hole in the wall cinema on Saint Laurent. It was screening, and I saw that was the second time. And then I was doing a residency in Banff, and it happened to be screening. And so, and then about, I guess probably 10 years ago, they did a thing at the ROM. They did that the sort of a film series. They did my movies, and then I could pick a movie to screen. So I picked this one, and so it's just been there's a couple of reasons why I love the movie. And when I watched it again the other day, I was thinking about, what it is about the movie. And something that I hadn't really considered about the movie is how it eschews, it would not be all the rules. So that you would never get this movie developed today.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting. I love it.
It's almost hostile to a conventional narrative arc, right?
Well, it's those, it goes Friday. Okay. Saturday. Okay, here it comes. Sunday. Okay, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thursday. Okay, what? It's so off. It throws you.
Well, you're led to expect the climax, and it just doesn't.
It doesn't happen.
Going.
And I read something really interesting recently when the Criterion came out, and so it introduced it to a lot of people, new people, and so someone wrote about it, and someone who's new to it wrote about it, and they said that very thing, that you would never get it developed today, and that the idea of the conflict is such that it's unresolvable from the beginning. It's not, this is not going to work out. So it's delightful to me that I have my new rant is about conflict.
Okay.
And it's about producers looking for conflict, and they want it in a treatment. They want it. So it's sort of, to me, it's like the metaphor is, it's like you plant some corn, and you say, here, look, seeds in dirt. And they say, well, it doesn't taste like corn. It's like, well, no, wait, it'll come, the conflict will come. And so I have a big problem forcing conflict into story, because then it falls to my lowest self. Like that conflict becomes my most unevolved thinking.
Okay.
And so it's always going to be expose some prejudice of my own as a human being, that conflict.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can let it sort of holistically develop out of the fiction, then it's going to be,
Well, it'll be the character's conflict. It'll belong to them.
It'll be evolved conflict. And anyway, so this film has the conflict is unresolvable, and also who's the protagonist?
Yeah.
Right. It's I mean it's clearly her or Glenda Jackson or Peter Finch, but
is it?
Yeah.
I don't know that it is.
Yeah.
I think I honestly had not even thought about that until you mentioned it, but I think the couple is the protagonist. I think we are forced over the course of the movie to watch the way it affects them, not as individuals, but as a unit. And I'd never...
When you say the couple, you mean each couple, like the couple...
Oh, that's even more interesting. I meant Finch and Jackson, but I think you're right. I think it's the various combinations. It's almost like a Lazy Susan that it just keeps rolling around and presenting.
And who is the couple? Like who's the ultimate couple? Well, maybe it is Finch and Jackson. Maybe, because they also talk about the person who wrote about it after the Criterion came out, and he talked about how Murray Head is sort of has really nothing. He has no appeal other than his sort of youth. Really, there's not. And it's like, well, it's true. He is so self-involved and selfish But and then so there's so much about the movie that is so outside the realm of what we. My concern is that we, the more we're not asked to tell stories that way, the less we'll tell them that way.
Sure.
And so what you get when you look at a movie like Sunday Bloody Sunday is really a movie about feelings and people having them. That scene where Glenda Jackson is eating fudge and crying, is just as an actor, it's. You can feel the fudge, that thing of eating and crying. And if you're eating if you've ever eaten fudge and cried, it's, but that's what the movie's about, that in a way, more than it is about the situation.
Yeah.
And so you get an opportunity to see actors do things and live in it. And it's not all, there's no engine on it, because the engine, and this thing about, put an engine on it. Oh God, if I hear that again from a producer. But, so they subvert that by going Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. Like, the engine blew up.
Yeah. It surprises me every time I am reminded, because it won't stay in my head. I don't know why, this little fact, this little chronology. I always think Schlesinger made it before Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah, me too.
It feels like a weird little indie that he wouldn't have been interested in or offered.
Yeah.
But it's the reverse. He made Midnight Cowboy. It won the Oscar, and then he can do whatever he wants. He does this.
I know. It's really. I always think that too. I forget, and of course it comes after.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like a 1971 movie. It feels like 67 or 68. It feels like the start of that filmic renaissance where people could do anything and attempt anything.
But also, you say that, but it's funny too, because I just went through this weird year of anxiety. I have I've rediscovered anxiety. It's been fabulous.
Yay.
And a lot of that was sort of health based, and it was so the first scene where the guy's like, "Tell me what it is, doctor." It's like, oh my God, that's so current.
Yeah,
that's so
true.
It feels so familiar and so current. Other than the reference to the bowler hat, but anyway, so there's something about it that feels. And that kiss, it's the first sort of mainstream male kiss in a film. And it's so nothing.
Yeah. It doesn't feel important. It doesn't feel like it's insisting on being recognized.
No, they're wearing their coats. He's wearing his coat in the kitchen, and he's coming, it's just this moment, and it's more than a peck, it's a kiss. It's a kiss between lovers, but it's in a kitchen, and it doesn't lead to a bed.
Yeah.
It's, and so it's...
No, it's immediately normalized.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't leave you... It doesn't invite you to be scandalized, I guess is the way I would frame it.
Well, yeah, and the thing that the really... probably the most remarkable thing about it for the period is that you have a very evolved, successful homosexual male who is not obsessed with his sexuality.
Yeah.
Who
His Judaism is almost more important.
Right, yeah.
At certain points in the film.
And he's having this affair with this bisexual artist, which is only upsetting to him to the extent that he shares him, but even less upsetting than to the woman, to Glenda Jackson. But also he has this weird dalliance with a potential hustler who steals his medical bag. But there's really no, he wakes up after that and he has a moment of like, oh, what a night. But he doesn't beat himself up over it. It's a well-adjusted man.
Maybe that's it too, that makes it so revolutionary, is that he's not punished for his sexuality by the film. Like he's not, or the audience, like we're not encouraged at any point to, I'm just thinking about the way even, Van Sant's stuff early on is about how revolutionary it is that this is happening.
Yeah.
The movie is so delighted to be able to display the behavior that it gets excited about it. Whereas Schlesinger's approach is to just have him right there in the world and get on with it.
He's closeted at the bar mitzvah, but that's
the cultural thing.
and so it doesn't. He's not tortured about that closet. He does it because it's necessary at that time, and then and then he's off playing charades with all his gay friends, and those great that little charade, the moment where they're playing charades and Murray Head's doing something with Peter Finch, and the guy at the party guesses "My heart belongs to Daddy," and there's such a sense of humor about that, the age, that sort of the May-September of that relationship. It doesn't apologize, and there's no shame in it. There's no
celebration either. It's just there.
Roger Ebert, because I was doing some research in preparation, and famously, I guess now I didn't realize it was famously, but he spoke about it. He loved the movie, and he spoke about how it's a movie about the absence of love, which I thought was very interesting because it doesn't feel like a love story, there's certainly not a celebration, and then there's so much about England. It's funny too when you like really observing it this time and looking at like everything on the radio is at the economic crisis.
Yeah.
It's like, oh right, things change, I guess, and so there's that there's that. Even those little scenes on the street where the drugged out sort of teens and it all feels very current somehow.
Yeah, it's odd. It's one of those movies that you're right. I don't think you could remake it now, but I don't think you'd want to.
Well, you couldn't. Well, the phone. I was thinking about that recently too, but about how to remake it and. Yeah, it's so central to this. Well, it's a theme, I guess. They share an answering service,
right?
And that's part of what's interesting to Schlesinger. But yeah, no, I guess
you a misplaced text message or something.
Yeah, you couldn't really. But you couldn't make the movie now because they'd say, where's the conflict? Where's he should be he should be totally destroyed about this. And and that crazy ending, that insane ending where he addresses the camera directly.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's addressing the camera. Are you kidding? They would never allow that. Yeah. Like it's the only moment in the film where anything like that occurs.
Yeah, it's such an odd theatrical touch. I remember the first time I saw it, it didn't surprise me. It just felt like I must have been in my mid-20s. And it just felt like this was the only way that you could get that out, short of an epigram, short of just putting up text on a screen.
I've been stymied by it. I've loved it and I've hated it, and most recently I've been really moved by it. Mm-hmm. And maybe because of my age, I'm old enough to understand that it doesn't need to be explained, and that it's like you're saying. I think that it was the only way to finish.
Yeah. Because it's so audacious a decision after all this kitchen sink realism to just suddenly have direct address.
Sure, and then what's he saying? Like, and then he ends. That's the last line is I only came about my cough. Like, and he's making a metaphor about asking advice or something, but yet it's just the strangest way to end the movie. But it's so weirdly moving, and when you think about the fact that this is a man who has been planning this trip to Italy with his lover, who's left him basically, and now he's going to go on his own, and he's okay.
Yeah.
And that's what he says. It's so, I think that's what's really touching too, is he says, I don't know what we were, but we were something.
Yeah.
And that's so evolved in terms of relationship.
Yeah. It's something that I associate with novels more than anything else. The idea that you can spend all your time reflecting on something and then just take comfort from it having happened. Yeah. And, having moved forward. It's hard to do on film. I mean, sometimes you'll get, what am I thinking of? The end of Magnolia, where you just get this little flash of a smile and a glimmer of hope in Laura Walter's face, and you just realize, oh, that's an epiphany. That's as close as this movie gets to ecstasy, is the possibility of happiness.
It's like the end of Synecdoche.
Yes.
Where he says,
which is,
I know what it's about.
Yeah, that's the different kind of ecstasy.
Yeah. I know what it's about.
Transitional ecstasy.
But yeah, I just find that ending, at different times in my life when I've seen the movie, it always seems to come around, when I need it, or when it's something's shifting. But I've been at times infuriated by that ending. Yeah. And this most recently, I was quite moved by it.
So, what was your first experience? Or how did you respond to the ending the first time?
The first time, I think the first time it could have been, for me, it could have been Derek Jarman. It was that kind of, the whole movie was like I found, because it was so unusual. I didn't see it I didn't see it I was 8 or something, so I didn't see it when it first came out. But when I did see it, it pretended to a kind of naturalism. It did have full naturalism, but then suddenly there were these strange superimpositions, or these flights of fancy, or then there's the running with the gas mask as a girl and the father, and what does it mean? What her privilege, and what does that mean, and how does that, and then
and the sight of a gas mask in 1971 England would still have had real resonance there too, so it's removed from its context for you.
But it means something then, and so it could have been Jarman, or it could have been. I think I probably saw it, and I probably did see it around. What was who was is that in Two Knots?
Greenaway.
It could have been like a Greenaway. Like, it was that bizarre to me that and then of course now as I've kind of come to love it more and more and know it more, it's this sort of very normal comfort or something, but but at first it was really audacious is a word that you used, and I think that's unsettling.
And how old were you at the time? Like,
I would have been in my 20s.
And like, where were you in your self-awareness?
I think that the and it probably, I think that probably it was when I started getting, going to get, I probably became aware of it because I was doing a lot of the gay film festivals and traveling and meeting filmmakers who were recommending films, and so I probably saw it as, first time I saw it was in terms of a gay film context. Right. And that would have been my focus, and I would imagine that in my 20s I might have been disappointed at the lack of drama around the gay stuff.
I can see that. I mean, it surprised me when I saw it, and I would have been somewhere around the same age. This was the big gay movie. This was the big deal, because I liked it, but I was expecting a very different experience based on the pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, and it didn't have that. And now, of course, that's so great. That's so perfect. And, but it's, I'm sure that, movie lovers like you have many movies that you probably come back to. But this is it for me. This is my movie that I come back to, and it comes back to me.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I love the most about watching movies over and over again as you're aware of your own aging and your own situation. The movie is fixed in time. It doesn't change. We do. And so finding new things or coming up with different interpretations, that's the thing that you can do it with any art form, obviously, but somehow with cinema, it's always been the one that's spoken to me. It's the thing that I'm most interested in. I'm going to go see Jaws again on Monday because they're screening it, and it's one of my favorite films, and I lose myself in it every time, and the craft of it just sweeps me away. But I always find that I'm just valuing a different thing in the film somehow. Like, I'll pay attention to... There was one time where I just watched it and all I was thinking about were the clothes in 1975 and how it doesn't feel like a period film, and I still don't know why. It's because people wear jeans. Really, other than a couple of hairstyles, there's no real tells.
I think you can note, as a gay man, I'll tell you, if you note that the height of the waist of the jean,
right?
And Roy Schreider's his jeans, that's a tell.
Yeah. I know that Dreyfuss is wearing what could be construed as hippie stuff, but it just doesn't. Now it looks like normal hipster clothes.
Right. But I wonder about, I wonder about the culture of where you sort of buy a movie or rent a movie online. Mm-hmm. You don't buy them. You don't. I wonder if the culture of rewatching is going to disappear a bit. Do people still own movies? Do people go out and buy movies? Do people buy movies? Do people buy movies on iTunes and own them?
You can.
You can, but do they?
You can choose to. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if they've ever made that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, I honestly don't know. Like, what happens when you sell a film to a distributor on demand? You'll get residuals. You'll get a sense of how much money it's making, but you won't know how the money is being made.
That's right. Is it rental or is it purchase?
Where the ancillary rights are broken up.
But but I wonder if it's become, similarly, I'm like, there's something disposable about it. And it brings me back to this idea of that time must be spent in a particular way now when you're in terms of developing a film and suggesting a script to someone. They want to know that the time needs to be spent, the goddamn fucking story thing about page 19, something this has to happen. And so you're talking, so 20 minutes of time you get, and then something has to change in 20 minutes. Right. Well, really? Does it? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe nothing changes ever, which is fine by me. I can watch My Dinner with Andre. I don't have a problem with My Dinner with Andre. Yeah. Because when he's crying in the alley and saying, I could live in my work but never in my life. Oh my God, I can't even say that without wanting to cry. But that's better than a car exploding to me. Yeah. So anyway, I've got to bug up my ass about this stuff.
But this is all valid too. I mean, I agree with you. First of all, I think that the idea of the cinema as play, as radio play, as 3-act structure, the thing that's evolved, that narrative has become since the earliest days. I mean, just look at television now where a show like Better Call Saul can move as slowly as it does because we know the ending, or we think we do. And that gives the storytellers this incredible power of delayed gratification. So you can spend an hour on this tiny element of one character's backstory that was referenced in another show, like in another series years ago, is now this meta-narrative that takes over. And you live in it, and nothing happens that we don't already know. That's the thing that amazes me. And there was an episode that flashed back to Mike Ehrmantraut's son being killed, caught up in a dirty cop scandal. And it's a throwaway line in Breaking Bad, one episode in like season 4, I think, that has been teased out and developed, and it's an hour long, and it's incredible. Because even though we know where it's going and we know what's going to happen, and we know in the end that nothing will befall these characters that are alive in Breaking Bad, because that hasn't happened yet, I'm still just so invested in it because, I care. I care about the character, and I want to know how this affects him, not how it moves the plot forward, because it doesn't, and not whether there will be suspense, because there won't. I'm invested. And it doesn't have to be, like, that has a beginning, middle, and an end, but it doesn't affect it's not an incident that anyone would care to watch in a larger story.
Yeah, because I think with television, the ending is somewhere in the distance. Right. It's coming, but it's not. We don't have to find the ending in these 60 minutes or whatever. Whereas in the film, they want the ending's coming. You're going to all go home, and we're not coming back. And so. But I think Better Call Saul is such an interesting example because I loved season 1 so much, and I didn't love season 2 as much. And the reasons why I didn't was when I felt the conflict was being manipulated. The relationship with the brother, to me, is as unsatisfying because I see it coming miles and miles away. It's not surprising.
Oh, right, that stuff.
So that bugs me. To me, I don't need it.
Yeah,
I don't need that.
It's interesting. I think McKean is doing such a well. I mean, because I've been listening to the Writers' Panel, a tremendous podcast that Ben Blacker is producing for Nerdist. I think it's still Nerdist. They had Gilligan and oh god, I'm going to blank on his name. The actual Peter Gould, the guys running the show. Mm-hmm. They had them on and they talked about it. And apparently, that all evolved out of them loving McKean. He wasn't the brother wasn't the antagonist in the original concept. Chuck just became the big bad over the course of season 1 because they realized that they had McKean and he could do it, and they thought that was more interesting, and that the sibling rivalry thing becoming toxic and metastasizing was a good metaphor for the cancer drive and Breaking Bad and all this stuff. And in season 2, it's like I'm not bothered by the fact that it's building to that reveal because I want to see how Jimmy figures it out. That's the hook for me. It's not that the plot doesn't matter to me because none of it matters.
Yeah.
What interests me is the moral evolution or lack of the moral degradation of this character who's in the middle and who's going to be tipped towards the dark side.
Yeah.
And watching him be disillusioned is actually the drama.
Right, which is also kind of subversive in that we know where he's going. Mm-hmm. And yes, like you said, yeah. So, but I lose it when around conflict that feels imposed that for purposes that I don't need it.
Right.
And I get really attached to the tone and the speed of it, and it was so delightful. I still love it. It's still one of the best things that's out there.
But if you're not connecting to that the necessary point,
because you've seen it through, right? You've seen it.
I've finished the second season.
Yeah. So we'll say, but
if you're not surprised by where that's going, and I wasn't either.
But you didn't need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm not. It's weird. I'm not expecting catharsis.
But I'm second guessing their intention.
Right.
So I'm thinking their intention is somehow to surprise me, and if it is, they failed.
Okay.
But I might be wrong.
But some people were like the AV Club review. I think I remember being surprised that this huge twist. It's like no, that's been coming.
There. Yeah, and I'm so that's me second guessing what I'm just trying to I'm imagining their intention. I don't know their intention.
Well, this is why I don't watch trailers. This is exactly the reason.
Right.
I don't want to know anything going in. I don't want any information that I'm going to start working with while I watch the story unfolding. Because if I know that this is a movie about... The Light Between Oceans is about a couple that finds a couple unable to have a child of their own who find a baby in a lifeboat and decide to keep it. So I know that. And I saw that this morning, and I would have spent the first 20 minutes, this is why they are going to find the baby. This is required. And I hate that. I want the movie to tell me things when the movie wants me to know things, and to, if you're being led to a conclusion, that's great. But I don't want it, even with Sunday Bloody Sunday, I don't want to know the precise nature of the relationships before I start seeing them play out. Yeah,
I remember I own it, and the trailer is on, I don't know if it's on the Criterion.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And the trailer is like, what? Like, the trailer is like, that kind of 70s, shocking, that voice, that British guy who would do the shocking, never before seen. And, it's like, it's so, who cuts the trailer is cut to sell tickets. And so it doesn't really have any bearing on the movie at all.
I think I would have made it, my teaser for that would have simply been the kiss in the kitchen.
Right.
Just, follow him in, have it happen, put the title up with, why is it bloody? What's bloody about that? That alone is interesting, but now what?
I love I love it too, but there's just so many great touches in that movie, and I love the when she goes in the morning and I love how she lives, and that she has her instant coffee and the hot water from the tap, and then she knocks over an ashtray, and so excited and in a rush to leave, and then when she comes home she has to deal with it. And it says everything about time and expectation and disappointment and what life really is. Mm-hmm. It's really cleaning up the ashtray. But then someone pointed out this thing I keep referring to after the review of the Criterion, where he talks about it, and the fact that she sort of just works the ashes into the very expensive carpet with her foot. It talks about her privilege in a way that I hadn't really kind of thought about, but sure, why not? So there's these small gestures that are they're so full of so much.
Yeah.
And the movie's full of it.
Yeah, so much of British cinema, too, requires... I'm overstepping. So much of the British cinema of that era requires a specific knowledge of how the class system works in England, because it's always about class.
Right.
But the more time that passes seems to render it more universal somehow. Like the culture's not as alien as it used to be.
Well, I mean, because I think that what we're really really talking about right now in contemporary North American society is class. We're calling it gender and we're calling it race, but we're talking about class.
Yeah, it all starts with where you come from.
And at some point it's going to crack open, and we'll see that very clearly. But when it's happening. But anyway, I think maybe that's why, because we're starting to feel the effects of what they've lived with forever.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I flatter myself, I think, by thinking I'm a little more aware of the stuff than the average person, but I'm probably not. I mean, I'm probably just as protected, if not more so, than the average Twitter user from the world around them. I did this whole thing on the bubble effect about, the DC and Marvel projects becoming sports teams, which went viral because John Hodgman retweeted it, and, he has 1 million followers, and suddenly it became a thing for about a day. And of course it applies to everything else as well. Someone immediately pointed out, well, this is Trump too. Like if you're a DC fan, you have the opportunity now with social media to only follow other DC fans. And so when somebody says, Batman vs. Superman is terrible and Suicide Squad is a moderate improvement, but it's still pretty bad, then you think, well, but you're attacking my thing, and it's my thing, and everybody else around me says it's a great thing. So what do you mean? That's Trump, that's Harper, that's, Justin Trudeau. It's all the same. In terms of the tribalism that it's generating. So I'm sure I've been living in that sort of bubble. I just pride myself on having a liberal bubble, and therefore I'm better than that. Well,
but I'll tell you, the thing about Twitter for me that that's the one social media that I participate in is, I don't think of it as a place to get information. I actually think of it as like my local.
Okay.
So I just want people. People say about you're just getting the echo effect with when where you're not following people that you disagree with. Right. But I think of it as like I just go to hang out with some nice people, and I just see them. Sometimes you just see them across the room. And I see people across the room that I like chatting. And occasionally there's a crazy person comes into the bar and they do something. And it's just I go in for my lunch, and sometimes I go in in the morning for a drink, and then I'll come, in the evening I might, So to me it's more, so I do understand that idea of like, you kind of want to have a broader base of information, but nah, I just want to have a nice evening.
I like that. We're like the seals in... Finding Dory barking at the one that they don't want on the rock. It's it's a weird place to be, to what's the term, to people who have suddenly sort of in the last couple of months, or maybe even the last year, realized the value in proclaiming yourself an ally rather than doing anything. It's just easier to have that label, right? Like, oh, I'm one of the good ones. But if you have to call yourself that, if you it's deeds, not words. If you have to draw your attention to this, you're not actually serving anything. You're distracting from whatever's going on to say, hey, I'm helping. It's like, okay, pick up a shovel. Do something.
Do something.
And I've become a little uneasy with that. Yeah,
that's a funny thing, right? That your thoughts and prayers are not doing anything, apparently. But
we evolve structures as humans to, I'm so sorry, or my condolences, things that you say. I'm sorry for your loss is one that I've always found incredible. Like, it's not comforting, really, but it's meant to comfort. And so we recognize the intention behind it, which is I wish I was more eloquent, I wish I had something else to say, but this is what we say.
It's funny, the one I use all the time that's come out under fire is, I hope you're well.
Really?
I use it all the time in my emails. I often start with it, and I do it because I do hope the person is well, but I have some business to talk about. So I'm just going to get this out of the way at the beginning. I hope you're well, but apparently now it's become like the new it's not kosher.
Really, I close with hope all is otherwise well all the time.
Yeah, apparently they didn't know.
Usually after a minute.
I don't agree. I mean it when I say it. I actually do hope things are well.
So is this like people hunting down the sociopaths in their midst and saying, you know, the only person who would use that is somebody who doesn't mean it?
Yeah, it was something. It was in the New York Times. Somebody wrote about it in the Times recently. Someone wrote a little op-ed about "Hope You're Well" thing. Yeah.
Wow, of all the things you can take exception to.
Speaking of words, you know what? If there was a remake of Sunday Bloody Sunday, you know what it needs to be called? Sunday fucking Sunday. Because that's what it is. Sure. And that's the thing when I talk about the movie to people, they say, oh, is it the one about the massacre of? Right, and it's like, no, it's not that kind of blood.
That's just Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
Paul Greengrass has co-opted it.
It's Sunday fucking Sunday.
Sunday fucking Sunday. How would you do it, though? Like, how would you stage it? Would you set it?
Well, actually, it's funny. I thought, one way to work this out would be to try to do it as a play somehow. Mm-hmm. I would try and stick. I would probably try and stick as close. The cheat is you do it as a period piece.
Sure, and if you do it on stage, you can do that more easily.
Yeah, and or even you could do it with phones. You could make the phone. It could be like about the phone, and even more so than Schlesinger made it about the phone. But it's like, those, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty radical. Those kids smoking pot in the bedroom, like those little kids, they're like 5 years old and they're smoking pot and they all get high and they, go to the park. It's like, I don't know. I don't know that movie would get past muster today. Yeah. I think they wouldn't. It's there's something kind of radical about its non-adherence to structure. And it's some of its subject, and its lack of shamelessness and it's shamelessness and its lack of sort of anybody getting their comeuppance somehow.
Yeah, it's almost more contemporary in that way, but in a way that works against it. Grabbing a new audience.
But I look at, obviously, what's his name? Weekend in 45 Years.
Oh, Andrew Haight.
Yeah, this is that world.
Yeah.
This is the world of Sunday Bloody Sunday and 45 Years. They are a companion, I think.
Where things are simply that lived in?
Yeah, when the movie's, it's about 45 years. He's telling you what it's about. It's about 45 years, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so something happens, and that's it. Something happens, and then the end, something happens. But the ending of 45 Years, I've had lots of conversations. I know what that ending is.
Okay.
But, so do other people.
Right.
And it's not what I know. But there's that conversation about what is that? What is she? Why does she do that? And it's genius, I think.
Everyone has, I was going to say everyone has grounds. Everyone has, like the film... It makes it possible based on who your sympathies lie with to read it either way.
Sure.
But there is only one right answer.
Oh, I know the answer. And Weekend, I mean, oh God, the best. What a great movie that is.
Yeah, I'm surprised there haven't been 5 more. Like, that people haven't immediately tried to knock that off.
You can't do it in North America. They won't let you.
Yeah.
You can't, there's nothing happens. What happens? They get together and... Well, they fall in love, kind of. Kind of? Yeah, sort of. Well, then what? Well, then, nothing.
Yeah.
What do you mean, nothing? It's like, no way you could get that movie made here.
Yeah. Well, well, but there's, you need the other gimmick. You need Before Sunrise. You need a film that I just saw called Southside with You about the first date that Barack Obama and Michelle Robinson had. That's how you get away with it. Nothing happens. They go to the art museum. They go to a community meeting. They go see Do the Right Thing. All of that happened on that day, and then the future, and that's it. Like, that's the movie, and the only way to do it is because he's president now. That's the hook.
And then you know where they end up.
Yeah, it's the Better Call Saul thing. You know where this is going.
I worry a bit about filmmaking in this country because people have become so we're so. We're struggling, we're fighting over the money and we're struggling to get the money, and they're like, what's $1 million movie now? It's we're better off trying to do a $500,000 movie than that 1.2 million movie is kind of disappearing, like what that is.
Yeah.
So then you got to start spending 3, and if you're spending 3, well then you've got to have something's got to happen that you can explain to a producer right now.
Right.
Like, someone's got the money in the case has to be misplaced and taken by someone else. Someone has to be kidnapped. Somebody has to be,
right.
Something, there has to be a real real engine on that.
It's bizarre too that the Canadian films, the independent films I'm thinking of now, are stuff like Diamond Tongues or How Heavy This Hammer and Tower, Kaz Radwanski's films. The stuff now that really just focuses on people and situations, that's the cheapest stuff to make because drama is free, right? Like emotions cost nothing. It's what Chandler Levac and I were talking about Eric Romer, and his legacy in mumblecore movies is that, like Andrew Bujalski understood that all you need is a formal point of view and people having conflicts of their own making, like emotional entanglement. It doesn't cost anything. If you have good actors, that's the investment.
And I have all the confidence in the filmmakers and the audiences in wanting that.
It's the fear of the money.
It's right? The producers
you have to play into them.
Yeah, who want to taste the corn today. Right. They want it popped, and we haven't planted it yet. Yeah. And so certainly conflict and these things and those kinds of like more traditional filmic experiences or what have become now contemporary traditional or whatever you would call that expected. I think can come holistically, like we talked at the beginning about, like when you know your characters, when your characters start to speak, then things will start to happen. But to impose it at the beginning, like some kind of an idea or a manifesto, you're only ever going to go that far. You're never going to go It's never going to surpass what you insist it is.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that it smothers the potential of something like Sunday Bloody Sunday or the potential of I was thinking of Leonard Farlinger's I'm Yours, with Rusif Sutherland and Corinne Van Ness, which for its first 45 minutes could go anywhere. And when it settles on something, that's fine. But that incredible sense of like this bubbling possibility that it's just in the relationship between these characters and whatever choice they make is going to be interesting. That, like, give me 3 hours of that and I'm there. That's
I'm like wonderful. That. I like, a producer once told me, you should be able to watch a movie with the sound down and still get the story, which is like, you might as well just stab me in the face, is to say that to me as a writer.
I noticed that with, like, of all things, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was on cable somewhere, and I watched, it was the last 20 minutes, 25, and it's true, but there's no dialogue because that's the climax, and I was just watching it for the craft. But I would, I wouldn't care if they hadn't.
I happened to watch, just after I heard that, I happened to stumble upon Stage Beauty, Claire Danes and Billy Crudup, and I thought it started. I don't know if I was watching it. It was television. Anyway, this movie started, and I thought, okay, so I turned the sound down. And this is a movie where they talk.
Yeah.
Didn't need it. I knew exactly what was happening. It was terrifying. Not a great movie. Not a movie that I would want to watch again. But yeah, right. It was a movie that got made. People saw it and didn't need to hear a word they said.
God.
Terrifying.
I wonder how Crudup and Danes would feel about that. I guess face acting has its own, like, certainly on Homeland, that's her thing.
Well, but you expect, it's like the setup and you start to, what the shot is. You know what? Oh, that shot. Oh, yes. And it's dirty, and I know why, because they're, you just start to understand the language of the visuals, and you don't need them talking. But I love dialogue, and that's, Bruce has been, Bruce McDonald, who I work with a lot, and he's been asking for a chamber piece from me for a long time, and I keep, I started, and then of course I was like, oh, it's so fun, it's so great, movies, theater, you get to go places if you're in a movie, right? You actually go somewhere, but of course that's very expensive to start going places, and so every time I start these chamber pieces, they end up, like The Trigger, the movie that I wrote for Bruce, for Tracy Wright and Molly Parker, started off was supposed to be an homage to My Dinner with Andre, and they were supposed to just have dinner.
Oh, so they never left Canoe.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, come on. Like, where do let's go. We got to do this and we got to do that. And Bruce was like, all right, I guess it's true. And so we started, like, and it was like, oh, Love Letter to Toronto. Great. We'll go, we can go here and we can do this. And so it turned out. But so now finally I'm trying to write him a chamber piece. I understand now. And it's partly my freaking out about conflict. And I'm like, okay, if we only have to spend $500,000, we can get away without, like, selling conflict right from the very beginning. Right. So I'm kind of looking. It's sort of practical, but
see, now I want to ask what it is, and I don't want to know because I want to find out when I see it.
Yeah, you'll see. It's fun. It's actually I'm writing for Molly. I love Molly. Molly's a friend of mine, and she's just getting better and better and better and better. And
I just saw her in The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, where she has a genuinely thankless role and just makes it interesting by being short-tempered.
She's on FX now. She's doing a lawyer thing with Billy Bob Thornton. And,
really?
And she's really happy. She likes the part. Her words were she's a horrible bitch, and so she's enjoying that because she gets to I think she struggles when her characters are forced to make weak choices. She doesn't. That's always disappointing.
Right.
So I think she's here, and she has an opportunity to make really strong choices.
Oh, cool.
So I'm kind of, it's sort of Bruce and Molly is the kind of the focus. So so we'll see. That we're just trying to write something now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that actually does bring me to the final question, which is the same one all the time. Is like, what of Sunday Bloody Sunday have you co-opted or stolen or borrowed or just incorporated into your own storytelling DNA?
Well, all the stuff that's not getting my movies made. Like quiet, still, acting, moments, feeling, observation, I say that, but what it does, when I look at it, it gives me hope that, yes, you can do that, and it can be compelling, and some people won't. Some people find that boring. That's fine. That's okay. This is what I want on my tombstone. Everything doesn't have to be for everybody. It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to like it. It's not for you then. What? Congratulations. Yeah. This isn't for you. You can go somewhere else and do something else and see something else. But there's this idea that somehow everything's potentially going to be for everybody. Anyway.
Well, that's what makes 1.5 billion, right? Like it's
when
no
it's
longer,
for everybody.
Yeah, it's no longer important. Or how was it explained? Right after Batman v Superman came out and underperformed by making like $800 million worldwide instead of 1.5 billion or whatever it did take, Warner announced that their reaction to this was that they were going to scale back mid-range production and pour everything into the tent poles, take bigger gambles, because you spend $300 million to make $1 billion, it's more comfortable as an equation than spend $20 million to make $60 million, because if it doesn't make $60 million, you've lost, like the gambles. Right. Even if Suicide Squad doesn't break $1 billion, it still makes money. It doesn't make as much as they wanted, but it still profits.
Right.
So Midnight Special comes out the week after Batman v Superman, is a better Superman movie than Batman v Superman, is really just this great Jeff Nichols film with Michael Shannon as a father.
Yes, I know about it, yeah.
Fantastic film. No one went to see it. It came out on DVD at the end of June, I think, and I just wrote about it again and said, hey, it's out. Please watch this. It's really, really good. And people were like, oh, yeah, I meant to see that. But now everybody just waits. You wait for VOD, you wait for DVD. I mean, now that's what would happen to Sunday Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
Like 8 screens in North America.
That's right.
But it would find its audience.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing, and this is the comfort that I take, is that $1.8 billion, that's none of that is my money. None of it. It's not my deal is Wednesday afternoon with 7 people. Like I'm that kind of old man theater goer guy who doesn't want. I don't like all the people. It's too crowded, and you're spilling things on me, and it's loud, and there are commercials, and it's like I just come in late at the Carlton, and just sit there with like the 8 other people or whatever, and it's which is it's not. I guess that can't be the future of filmmaking.
It's not the most successful model.
Yeah, not the most successful. There's something that's for me it's incredibly comforting. That's how I saw 45 years, and
that'd be perfect.
Oh my God, I wept. I couldn't get up. It was so great.
Yeah. I mean, that's my press screening experience. There's 20 people in a varsity screening room at 10 in the morning, and that's fine.
But you like the whole buzz of it all, right?
Less and less. I think for me it was when they brought nachos in. Because that's disgusting.
Oh, that's terrible.
The smell and the sound of the crunching and people just fumbling with
melted cheese. No,
don't do that in a crowd.
No. Do that at home.
That's where it started.
Melt your cheese at home.
Other people are bad.
Well,
nacho people
what
they are
Sarge
nacho,
said.
what
hell is, what hell is, according to Sarge, right?
Yeah. Well, this is helping. The idea of a private box where you can just sit away from people and watch stuff. We're going to watch The Hip tomorrow night and cry our eyes out, but this is as close as I'm going to get to the actual experience.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's it's a weird but this is also why people are turning away from movie theaters. This scale question. Now that HD is where it is, you can actually do something this big. You can watch a movie in the like I'm going to watch TIFF screeners in here, and they're going to be better than they would be if I was.
But when I think about, it's fun. I would say yes, and it's I don't need to be out in the world with people, but I do remember there was something about 45 years specifically when I saw it, and I saw it at the Carlton, and it was near the end of the run, and it was Wednesday afternoon.
Right.
There were 8 people, I don't know, and when it was done, I wept. I just sat there and I couldn't get up, and then. And I can't even tell you why. It did. I just, there was something about what she did in those last moments. And so the thing was well over, and I got up, and as I walked out, there was a woman sitting, and I thought, oh, wow, like her too. So I wouldn't have had a her too if I'd rented it on iTunes and watched it at home. And there's something really beautiful about knowing that there's other people out there having feelings like you are.
Yeah, that's what's always going to get me to go back, even if it is 600 people eating nachos. I want
all of them.
I want to know
600 people eating nachos.
But I want it to be that. I want to know that they're feeling. They might not be feeling the same thing, but yeah, we're all feeling something at the thing on the wall.
Yeah.
My thanks to Daniel MacIvor, who'll be in Toronto for the world premiere of Weirdos this Friday, September 9th at 7 p.m. at the TIFF Bell Lightbox. He'll probably still be there for the movie's second screening Sunday, September 11th at 8:45 a.m. at the Isabel Bader Theatre. If you're in town, you should check those out. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Daniel MacIvor, all one word, and you can find Sunday Bloody Sunday on DVD and Blu-ray in a very fine special edition from the Criterion Collection. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you want to leave a review on iTunes, that would be very kind of you. This week's call sign is, I just haven't found the right person yet. Thanks for listening.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.